what if I told you that the youngest serial killer in Britain was just 15? Over the past 2 decades, nearly 400 children have been convicted of murder in the UK, some as young as 11. But the case of James Fairweather, Britain's youngest serial killer, sent shockwaves through the nation. Join us as investigative journalist Leia Green uncovers the chilling details of this case. Let's take a journey into a disturbing tale of murder and disturbed minds. Our story begins on a chilling night in March 2014, in the quiet town of Colchester, Essex. The tranquility was shattered when 33-year-old Jim Atfield, a beloved community member, was found brutally murdered. This marked the beginning of a terrifying saga. The perpetrator, a troubled teenager named James Fairweather. Fairweather was not your average adolescent. He harbored a dark fascination with serial killers, often spending hours absorbed in their twisted narratives. It's said that he was driven by voices in his own head, voices that urged him to commit such heinous acts. He meticulously planned his attacks, immersing himself in the gruesome details of his notorious idols. Atfield was just the first victim of this disturbed young man. The community was left in shock and disbelief, unaware that the horror was far from over. 80 days later, Fairweather would strike again. The second murder would send a wave of fear through the community. Less than 3 months had passed when Fairweather, driven by the chilling voices in his head, struck again. This time, his victim was a Saudi Arabian student, known to us only as N. The gruesome details of the murder sent shockwaves through Colchester. The once tranquil community was now under the shadow of an unknown terror. With 2 murders in quick succession, the local police force sprang into action. A major manhunt commenced, with every available resource deployed to track down the killer. But as the days turned into weeks, the elusive murderer remained at large. The community was on edge. Parents held their children a little tighter. Neighbors watched each other with suspicion. And an eerie silence fell over the parks and streets, once buzzing with life. The fear of a potential serial killer on the loose gripped the public. A local resident's watchful eyes would lead to Fairweather's arrest. In a twist of fate, Michelle Sadler, a local resident, spotted Fairweather near the crime scene. Recognizing his suspicious behavior, she alerted the authorities. The police arrived promptly, apprehending the troubled teenager without incident. The community breathed a collective sigh of relief as news of the arrest spread. But the story was far from over. The courtroom drama that unfolded in Guildford Crown Court was nothing short of a psychological thriller. The trial became a battle of experts, with Fairweather's mental state at the heart of the debate. His defense team painted a picture of a disturbed mind tormented by voices and hallucinations. They argued that these factors absolved him from full responsibility for his heinous actions. On the other hand, the prosecution depicted a chillingly different image of Fairweather. They portrayed him as a calculated, premeditating killer, fascinated by serial murderers and driven by a dark internal force. It was a narrative that sent chills down the spines of those in the courtroom. As the jury grappled with these interpretations, they were tasked with the monumental decision of determining Fairweather's fate. Would they see him as a victim of his mental state, or as a cold-blooded murderer? The tension was palpable as they left to deliberate. As the jury grappled with these interpretations, the verdict would shed light on the darkest corners of the human mind. The verdict delivered by the jury would shock the nation. Fairweather was found guilty of 2 counts of murder, despite the defense's pleas of insanity. This decision would stir a nationwide debate, challenging our understanding of the human mind and the line where responsibility begins and ends in the face of mental illness. The tragedy of James Fairweather's story reminds us how cruelly innocence can be lost, and how a fascination can morph into a dangerous obsession, leading to unspeakable acts of violence. These acts, committed by a child barely into his teenage years, underline the importance of early intervention and support for those struggling with their mental health. As we reflect on the aftermath of these horrific events, it is clear that the echoes of this case will continue to reverberate through the halls of British justice for years to come. As we unravel the mind of Britain's youngest serial killer, we invite you to ponder: is Fairweather a troubled mind victimized by his mental state, or a calculated killer?